The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
On to the doctor who didn't have a problem slamming health care spending, just feet from the President of the United States.
We spend a lot of money on health care, twice as much per capita as anybody else in the world, and yet not very efficient.
Well, Dr. Ben Carson is the director of pediatric surgery over at Johns Hopkins. Doctor, very good to have you. What did the president say to you after your remarks, doctor?
He came over to me and said that I appreciated my speech and that he admired me, and shook my hand and didn't squeeze it too hard. It was very good.
What do you mean he didn't squeeze it too hard? It was just like one of these fish kind of handshakes?
It was a good handshake.
You know, many of your critics, doctor, on the liberal side have said you were just trying to showboat for an occasion. A number of Democratic legislators have said as much. But you argue not so, right?
No. What we need to do is we need to be able to discuss intelligent ways of solving the multitudinous problems that threaten to destroy our nation. And there are a group of people who would like to silence everybody and have everybody go along to get along, but that's not going to be very helpful for us in the long run in terms of solving our problems. And somebody has to be courageous enough to actually stand up to, you know, the bullies.
You know, I think what made you stand out a little bit, doctor, is you were not a fire breather. I mean, you're an accomplished, well-respected, internationally renowned doctor. And you had one of the most prestigious departments in all of medicine at one of the most prestigious schools in all of medicine. Having said that, why did you take it upon yourself to go beyond just medical policy and talk about tax policy? What were you getting at?
Well, one of the things that I also said during the speech is there will be some people who will say, but you're a doctor, a neurosurgeon, right, you should be sticking to that. And I mentioned the fact that 5 physicians signed the Declaration of Independence and were involved in the framing of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and several other things. There's absolutely no reason at all that physicians, scientists shouldn't be involved in things that affect all of us. We're people who've learned how to make decisions based on facts, empirical data, rather than on ideology. And one of the geniuses, one of the real things that made us a great nation is that we brought people from all backgrounds into the legislative process so that all of us would be able to place our interests there, and we've gone significantly away from that. And no one ever says to a lawyer, why are you getting involved in this and that and the other? I don't see why they would say it to a physician. We have more education than anyone else in society.
They sometimes say that even about TV anchors weighing in on these issues. I don't know what it is, doctor. But I was focused, sir, on the reaction you were getting from the president as you were making your remarks. Did you know or did you suspect what you were saying was going, as we're watching this, jibe him a little bit?
Well, there's no question that he has advocated, you know, basically a policy of tax the rich. And I have advocated a policy that comes from the Bible, which is a very fair policy of proportional taxation. If it was good enough for God, why wouldn't it be good enough for us? The minute you deviate away from that, you begin to get into all kinds of biases. And one could legitimately make the argument that the rich pay too many taxes. The top 1% pays 37% of the taxes. The top 5%, 59% of the taxes, but they don't make that much of the income. One could make that argument. It depends on your philosophical disposition, which arguments you're going to make, but you take those arguments away as soon as you go to a proportional tax. I believe that's the reason God did it.
You know, when the president came up with the health care initiative, legislation, and now law, he argued that many, many doctors supported it, and that the overwhelming majority that he contacted and dealt with and discussed it with supported it. What do you think of that? How many, you obviously know the medical profession better than myself, or certainly the president. I mean, how would you gauge reaction among your fellow doctors?
Well, I know a lot of doctors. I work with a lot of doctors, and I didn't find a lot of support for it. I found a lot of people who were really quite disappointed with it.
And what bothered them, doctor? What was it that caused them the greatest concern?
Well, first of all, it's an expansion of the bureaucracy. You know, what do you need for good health care? You need a patient and you need a doctor. Along comes the middleman to facilitate the relationship, and it has become this mammoth creature that completely controls everything and isn't really even necessary.
You know, when it got into the bigger issue of this sort of class warfare, for lack of a better term, Doctor, that's when I really focused on the president. And we've sort of focused on just his reaction as you were talking about this. I want you to focus on this and then react to it. I know you can't see it, I believe, from your vantage point. Well, suffice it to say that our viewers at home will be able to engage his not too pleasant reaction to what you were saying. Let's take a peek at this.
Well, you know,
You make $10 billion, you put in $1 billion. You make $10, you put in 1. Of course, you got to get rid of the loopholes. But now some people say, well, that's not fair because it doesn't hurt the guy who made $10 billion as much as the guy who made 10. Where does it say you have to hurt the guy? He just put $1 billion in the pot. You know, we don't need to hurt him.
I got the feeling looking at that, Doctor, and you were there, I wasn't, that he figured, who got this guy on the dais and who got this guy to speak? Leaving that aside, obviously you got quite a round of applause. There are some in that room and elsewhere, since this video has gone viral, who has said, you should run for president. What do you think of that?
well, actually, I've had people telling me that for many years now. If I had a nickel for everybody who told me that, I could finance my campaign.
You and me both. You and me both. But I said, well, it's superhero. But your reaction to that is what? I mean, you don't think that's for you? You want to be a doctor, help people, what?
I've always said if God grabs me by the collar and sticks me in that arena, that's the only way that I'll do it. No, I'm actually going to retire in June from surgery. I will still teach, I will still be involved, but I'm going to retire from surgery. So it does open up a lot of possibilities for me. You know, I'm very focused on education and getting the populace back to where it used to be, like back in 1831 when Alexis de Tocqueville came here and was so impressed, because an uneducated populace will fall for anything. And if you go and you talk to most people, they mean well, but they don't have much of a breadth of education, of knowledge, of understanding what the real issues are. And therefore, they listen to pundits on television who tell them what they're supposed to think, and they keep repeating that, and pretty soon they say, oh, well, that must be true.
I assume sometimes you're talking about other pundits, Doctor, but yes, I hear what you're saying. Sir, thank you very much. Very good having you. That was very interesting to watch that whole,
Thank you.
How that all played out at the breakfast.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.